Celebrations, the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario paid a visit to Peterborough today. Kimberly Walker reports.
Thank you.
His Honor Henry Jackman visited a local public school to make a special presentation. After explaining his job to the children, His Honor presented grade 6 student Samantha Walker with the Governor-General's Canada Remembers Contribution Certificate. Samantha initiated a Canada Remembers ceremony at her school with the planting of tulips.
I know a lot of people don't remember the people in the war, so I really wanted them to remember, because you really only learn about it in grade 10, so I wanted to make sure people learn about it before grade 10.
In the afternoon, the Lieutenant Governor General unveiled a monument given to the city by the Dutch-Canadian community in appreciation of the liberation of Holland in 1945. He was joined by the Consul General of the Netherlands, Paul Schellekens, and presented with gifts from Dutch-Canadian children.
Even as a small boy, I remember the tulips given to Canada by the then young Princess of the Netherlands that were given to Ottawa, and since that time, whenever we Canadians think of the friendship between our two countries, we think of the tulips.
It was an emotional ceremony for the Dutch Canadians who remember the German occupation of Holland.
They were putting everything on the train, our food, and when they went to Germany with the train, they were writing down this gift from the Dutch people, all the food, and we didn't have any.
At one time they decided to dig up the streets. We had the cobblestone streets and made barricades out of them. And one side of the street there was the Germans and the other side were the Canadians fighting. So we were all guarded down into the cellar, and that's where we had to stay until finally the Canadians, they won.
From there, His Honor and his entourage went to the Peterborough Cenotaph. His Honor also attended a showing of the Canada Remembers school program film at St. Peter's High School. Following that, there was a reception with veterans at the Peterborough Armory. This ended his busy but very special visit to the city. For Newswatch, I'm Kimberly Walker.
And a parade was held in Omemee yesterday to honor those who fought for freedom.
They are the men and women from our own communities who served during the Second World War. Today they came together to take pride in their accomplishments here and overseas, and they came to remember the sacrifices that were made to win the war 50 years ago. After a salute by a Hercules transport from CFB Trenton, the parade came to a halt outside Coronation Hall. Jim Johnson, the most decorated veteran in the area, laid the wreath that read, "Canada Remembers." Local Dutch people took part to show their appreciation to Canada for the liberation of Holland.
The things that I remember is hiding under a big wagon of hay. All the whole community was there, pretty near all hiding because all the shells were flying all around us. And I can still see the shells laying beside me, coming down. And it was a scary part, I guess. I was very young.
Mike Gray, the chairman of the three-day event, received the Governor-General's Award for organizing the largest VE celebration outside Ottawa. Everybody involved remembered Victory Day 50 years ago.
We call splice the main brace. What was getting a bottle of liquor and giving everybody a tot, we call it a tot, and give every man on board the ship a drink. So when the officer said to me, he said, "What do you do with the balance?" And I said, "I'm supposed to throw it overboard, but I don't want to do it today." So he said, "If you can drink it, you can have it." So I drank it, and that's as far as I went.
For Newswatch, I'm Kimberly Walker.
We will have more on VE Day later on Newswatch. Tonight we begin a 5-part series. We will be talking to local people about what they were doing and where they were when the end of the Second World War in Europe was announced. The Second World War was over in Europe, 5 years and 8 months after it began. Tens of millions of lives had been lost, hundreds of billions of dollars spent, and vast areas of the continent left in rubble. Canada Remembers is the theme for this year's 50th anniversary celebrations of the end of the Second World War in Europe. We have spoken to many of those who remember the events. Today, in the first of a 5-part series, the recollections of people who survived the war in Europe. Me, 8th was a day of jubilation, the day that darkness was lifted across Europe. For 5 years, the people had lived in constant hunger, fear, and hope for better days.
It was a Sunday morning, and it was gorgeous weather, which doesn't often happen in Holland. There's a lot of rain and wind. And so they said, they're coming, they're coming.
When the Allies liberated Holland, they were received like royalty. The streets were packed with cheering crowds. There was dancing in the streets.
I had knit sweaters for my boys, white cotton. My mother-in-law had given me a piece of a bedspread, and I unraveled that, and I made my, and I embroidered a big Dutch flag on it, you know this? And so I took my boys out and at the roadside till the tanks came in.
Pregnant, TRUUS DeBRUYN walked with her 2 children from her home in Rotterdam to the northern part of Holland when her husband was taken by the Gestapo in 1944, never to be seen by her again.
It was more or less a fight for survival. And I felt I was responsible for my children. So if my husband was coming back, I wanted to have the idea that I took care of the children as well as I could.
Our life was a continuous prayer, and at night too you could not sleep in peace. As soon as a German truck came through the street, I was wide awake as a 18-year-old and out of bed and ready to run.
Like many members of the resistance, Henry Vandendoort couldn't afford to be found by the Nazis. At 18 years old, he should have been in a German labor camp, but instead he crossed enemy lines to join the Allies. After serving in 3 armies, the British, Dutch, and Canadian, he came home to freedom.
The Germans were still there shooting at the underground people, including my dad. But when I went out in Canadian uniform, they laid down their arms and they did not give any more trouble.
Bill Mulders spent 3 years in the labor camps in Nazi-held Europe. He did whatever he could to hinder rather than help the war effort in Germany, and at the same time to keep his sanity.
I even dressed up as a cowboy sometimes and played a guitar and sit in front of the barracks, and they come with me and doing a bit of a sing-song there. I felt good by doing that, because I knew it would help them as well as myself.
He was in a hospital when a friend told him the Rhineland had been overrun by the Allies.
He pulled a handful of cigarette butts, that long. Well, we hadn't seen that long, and for years. Nobody threw away a butt of cigarette. We hadn't had a cigarette for years, and then all of a sudden they were. I said, now I believe it.
Despite what they've gone through, and perhaps because of it, the survivors of this war have an enormous appreciation for the value of life. They ask not for pity, just love and acceptance.
I don't think that we made a very big drama about this either. It was an experience, but you have to do a lot, you know, when you're in a situation that you have to really fend for yourself. You get added strength, I think. You're able to do these things.
Amazing people.
A lot of memories.
Yes, I've really enjoyed doing this. And tomorrow night, we're going to have a piece on the people who fought during the war.
Looking forward to it. And that's it for News Watch Early Edition for Monday, May 1st. Join us again tomorrow evening at 6 for more local news. And remember, News Watch pays $100 for the best news tip of the month and $50 for video we can air.
Call us free on Bell Mobility, *111 or 742-8712. Graham Hart will be here tonight at 11. He joins us now with some of the stories he's working on for News Watch Late Edition.
Tonight we'll take another look at Lynn McLeod's trip to Peterborough. Good news on the economic front and City Hall tonight. Dave?
Thank you, Graham. The Blue Jays loses to California this afternoon. In hockey, the Leafs are in Edmonton tonight. Highlights at 11. Peter?
Expect to see sunshine tomorrow, and it should be warmer. An update at 11.
Sunshine, what's that? Thank you for watching. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.